What this show's about is which is better in 2026, a V-hull or a catamaran? I think we ought to set up what our definitions are about. You know, in 2026, catamarans, there's 4 or 5 brands that are really great. You know, we just are closing, we closed already on Twin V, but we started out looking for a Jupiter. We started out looking at 42, we had a 38 Jupiter, and they've morphed into 40s. Now they morphed into, in 2026, they morphed into 42s. Wow, what a nice boat. Really a nice boat. An expensive boat, I might add, too. There's also a lot of brands of V-hulls, way more brands of V-hulls than there is catamarans, but, and you have a lot of price points to choose from. So we looked at a lot of V-hulls, and I've been partial to Jupiter. In 2009, I bought a brand new Jupiter. That was in a real bad recession, and I happened to have come into a large sum of money, and I went to the boat show with cash to buy a boat, and the only people that that embraced me, you know, I think a lot of it was because they're looking for like younger guys, like from Cuba, from Cuban Americans from Miami. They had like a stereotype of what customer they were looking for, yellowfin particular. They wouldn't talk to me. Just the different boats, they weren't open and welcoming. And Todd, the president of Jupiter, was like, hey, come on in. And I said, I'm ready to buy right now. And Todd took me at his word. I was out of the demographic of what they were looking for. But I think Jupiter's demographic was a little bit older, a little bit, you know, well-heeled kind of guy that liked to fish a little bit, you know. So they gave me a chance and sold me a boat. Man, I loved that Jupiter. And I loved those Jupiter people they just treated me so well. It was incredible, really. But so I never can say anything bad about Jupiter. I love those guys. Anyway, I expected to buy a Jupiter on this go round, but then we got comparing the catamarans. Man, are these catamarans or something? So anyway, we want to try and make a fair comparison. And I even noticed that some of the other guys with fishing channels have went from catamarans, then back to V-hulls. And I haven't seen anybody go back and forth twice, but I think a lot of it's to do with price point. You know, Freeman, I don't like to name names and stuff, but Freeman is the leader in the catamaran category. And wow, when you see a Freeman, you're just like, your jaw drops. That is a beautiful boat. Wow. So, you know, they got a big price, and they're selling them probably as fast as they can make them. So God bless them. Then there's also the whole rest of the field chasing them. And that's where, you know, World Cat and Twin V and different boats, you know, they're coming up, coming on strong. But it's a real healthy market, I think, really healthy. There's a lot to choose from. I mean, basically, there's a lot to choose from. Boats made around Fort Pierce, you know, in South Florida, or Central Florida, anyway. One of the things which we liked, we were blown away with a catamaran, was the speed that you can run in rough water. Like, we don't want to go out. If it's blowing 30 miles an hour, I'm not going fishing. That's a good day to stay home and play with a dog. Sometimes you do get caught in a bigger waves, or you're on your way home and it's a 2-hour ride and, you know, it blows up. But it is nice to be able to run fast in 3-footers. So, which can come up pretty darn quick in a half an hour. The real world performance, I think, lends a little bit to catamarans for speed, but V-hulls they're really can run in deep stuff. Basically, my 38 Jupiter was way tougher than me. You know, I had a spine and hips and legs, and man, they would be giving out, but the Jupiter never gave out, you know. Its bulkheads and hull, man, that was a good boat. You know, there's some really nice V-hull boats. Contenders we looked at, they're beautiful boats. I really like them strictly fishing. I mean, they're nice boats. CV has a real nice boat, but CV also is making catamarans now too. One thing I was really impressed with CV boats, I'm going maybe off subject, but man, they have about a 40-foot boat that holds 1,000 gallons of gas. I actually want to go to their factory, which is down in, I think it's Princeton, Florida, which is Homestead. I wanted to see what a 1,000-gallon gas tank looked like in a boat. Holy mackerel. That's a big boat. You know, when you're running, like we're running 400s, the boat I chose has 800 gallons, and that's a lot of gas. That's a lot of gas. That's a lot of weight to be hauling around. You know, I don't know what that is, but you would need a calculator to figure that out. And as far as going for speed, I think, you know, it's a mishmash. I actually was looking at a boat the other day. I think it was a HCB, and it had 3,000 horsepower of outboards on it. It was a row of outboards. It was a cool boat, and it was a V-hull. So I know one thing, that guy's getting where he's going. He's listening to music and probably having a cold one, but he's going, you know. And I knew some guys with an HCB in Bimini. They didn't even leave the casino at Bimini till midnight, and they would run back to Florida. Anyway, I'm not interested in running at night. But for safety, I think catamarans versus V-hulls, I would say that's a wash too, really. I think they're both safe. I've noticed that some of the more high-end V-hulls have really low freeboard back by the transom, which I'm not a big fan of. I'd rather have it up high on the, you know, and I don't want to mention names, but my wife and I were walking around the boat show in Fort Lauderdale. We were really surprised at how low some of the freeboard was. And on big money boats too. There's a lot to it, you know, a lot to choose from. But if we appreciate everybody listening. I'm just taking a little CTA, call to action. You know, if you're not a subscriber, please hit your subscribe button for the spine-tingling content we're making, and you know, hit the like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. It helps us out, you know. But now getting back to our war here between catamarans and V-hulls, you know, the value for the money. That's a good question. I'd actually have to give the V-hulls the nod on this, and for the following reasons. I think, like, if you're like I'm not an expert on 28-foot boats and 30-foot 32s and stuff. I'm more of a 38, 42 guy. I like 3 or 4 outboards on my boat. So that you know, everybody's got their price point, their value for the money, but I believe that you can get a lot more boat with a V-hull. You know, I guess a traditional boat. I think also V-hulls start at, like, say 150, 200,000, you can get a V-hull. And that's not even getting you in the door on a catamaran, you know, really. Even an entry-level catamaran. I got to give the nod to value for the money to the V-hulls. So we actually have I don't know when to get paper-wise on you, but we even have a questionnaire that we're going to make. Oh, it was upside down. Well, it was good on my side, but we're going to make this available down below. And, you know, it's not that we have the answers, it's just that we have been thinking about the questions and maybe help somebody else out, you know, so we'll have that for you. And there's really, you know, I call this a war, the multi-hull war, but I don't think there's really a clear winner, really. It's just what's right for everybody. You know, talking about this value for the money, I'm finishing up on this, but I want to wrap my boat, which I've been on again and off again wrapping. And I'd like to, if you got an opinion on wrapping your boat, put down in the comments below, because I want to wrap my boat. I want to say Bob Harvey and maybe put a giant YouTube button. But I was standing next to this beautiful 40-foot twin V. Man, from the deck down to the water line, it's got to be 6, 7 foot. And I was saying, how much wrap is it going to take? to wrap this boat, whew. And also interesting, you can change the color of the boat with a wrap too. Like this boat I bought is beautiful white boat, but you could make it light blue, aquamarine. You could do whatever you want, purple even. I've seen guys with chrome wraps. I think that's interesting. And does it add value to the boat? I think it does. One thing it does, if I had this boat, say 5 years, and we're going to have billfish against beaten up, or we're going to be beating up lead weights, from deep dropping, going to hit the sides and hit the vinyl wrap. This pretty material made by 3M, I think. I'd rather hit that, and then when the next owner peels it off, peels Bob Harvey YouTube off, and he's got a brand new white boat underneath. All you got to do is wax it, and it's ready to go. So I think that's a good idea, good value proposition. And then that brings us to our next value. What do you think the residual value is going to be in 48 months on a V-hull versus a catamaran? Because there's a lot of content out there about, and a lot of people have stats on V-hulls, but I'm not seeing used catamarans. Like there's not even a market for used catamarans. I've been looking and looking. I thought, geez, it'd be nice to buy like a 3-year-old Freeman, say, or whatever, that I could afford. And there's just not any for sale, not even one or two. There's just no used catamarans. Where there's not a lot, but there's some used boats. The boat market's been really hot lately. You're not seeing a lot of used boats, especially 40-footers. Like I love the Bahama 41. That's a beautiful boat, nice Palm Beach boat, but never even seen one for sale used. And contenders are really beautiful boats. Sea hunters, you just don't see them. There's just not that many. And the contenders, I've seen a couple contenders, V-hulls for sale. They're as much as a new boat. So I don't know, does used boats go up? Well, that's ridiculous, but I know I drive a Lincoln Navigator, and they don't seem to be going up. Once you buy them, you're like on the escalator going down. But I don't know. If anybody has an opinion on that and on wrapping, please enlighten me, because I don't know, and I'm supposed to be your guide on this journey. But anyway, that brings us by the next item we're going to talk about is fuel economy. I know that if you got 400s back there and you're hammered down, you're using a lot of fuel. I don't know the numbers. And on my 56 Ocean I just sold with the 800 horse cats, I know we went hammered down. It was drinking some fuel, but throttle back, and I could drive that boat. To North Carolina on the same tank of fuel. I think the same way with these boats here. I don't think there's a lot of difference in the fuel economy. I would say maybe the catamarans might get a little bit of nod because of the way the hull, the energy of the two hulls is pushing up the air, and maybe it's giving it a little assist. Where a V-hull, you're pushing that hull, especially when you take off, you got to go up and over the hill to get it up on plane. So I don't know. I think I'd give the nod on fuel economy to the catamaran, but probably not by much, especially when you strap on quad 400s. Quad 400s versus 3 400s. I'd say there's a little bit of advantage to the 3 versus the 4, but man, I used to when I had my 38 Jupiter with 350 Yamahas on it, and they made those boats with 2 350 Yamahas. There was a guy in town, we lived in Key West, and there was a guy in town that he'd always be staring at my boat. And I said, come here, buddy, you need a hug? Come on in here, bring it in here, buddy. But he didn't appreciate that probably. But it's nice to have more motors. More is better than less. So the hell with a fuel economy. Go get a job and make some money and buy some more fuel. So much for that. You know, if you're learning anything from this content, give us a thumbs up and like it down below. And then tell us what we're doing wrong, because there's a lot. That's probably the big list of mistakes. So my final verdict on boater type is, you know, in the car business, they say, and I don't mean to be crude, but there's an ass for every seat. And there probably is for Catamaran versus V-type. I don't know. I was more, you know, I'm an older gentleman, and I didn't really, I wouldn't even look at a Catamaran. I thought they were stupid. And then the double row of seats, the sleigh seating they call it, man, I thought that was dumb. Who would put, you know, a double row seat until I got a ride on a double row seat? Man, is that nice. That is the slickest thing, because the best seat in the whole house is standing behind the guy driving. You know, you're up, it's little raised, maybe 6-8 inches. Up higher, you can see great. It's flat, calm. You know, I was going 50 miles an hour in 3-footers and just filming, and, you know, didn't even have to hold on. I had all kinds of seats around me. Man, my wife and dog are gonna love that seat. You know, I'm never gonna get her to ride up in the front seat. The back seats are where it's at. Anyway, they got armrest, and one thing, Twin V makes beautiful, beautiful upholstery. You know, I'm like, I think I moved up to president of the Twin V fan club or something. But man, I love the seats on that. They're just beautiful. The leather works beautiful. The bow has a padded bow. It's just very impressive, the leather. And actually, that might be some of the nicest boat cushions I've seen on any boat. Not saying I'm an expert on it, but anyway, I do have a sewing kit in case anybody wonders. You know, it's an interesting thing. I think that Sea Hunters have a really nice interior too. They've paid attention, and so actually the Costas were a really nice boat I was on. I was on a 34, I think, of that, and the ride just wasn't there. It rode like a V-hull, you know. So I think to get the Catamaran game going, you got to be 40, 42. Probably next year I'll be going, I need a 46 band. But I don't know. But anyway, the final verdict on the boater type is, I think you're going to have to make your own mind up, because there's a lot to be said for it. I actually been putting on my Facebook channel pictures of the offshore powerboat racing, which, man, I love listening to the sound of those, like maybe they're 50-foot catamarans going by, you know, and man, do they sound like that's heaven. But the V-hulls sound good too, but I used to watch Reggie Fountain with his big V-hulls, and they always sounded good. He put on especially if it was rough, he put on a good show. So anyway, this is like, if it was the baby, we're gonna have to saw the baby in half, because I can't make up my mind. Well, I can't make up my mind which is better. You know, I like them both. And boy, I love boats. I guess that's the biggest thing. You know, you shouldn't even be in this race if you don't love boats. I don't know if anybody learned anything. As a matter of fact, maybe I have more questions now than when we started. But I'm gonna work on it. I might even bring this video back for another go-round, because I'm gonna keep working on this. This is maybe like the eternal question, V-hull versus Catamaran. And if I learn some more, get some good comments, we might come back to this subject. So it's been a winner. It's been a winner for me. So this is awesome. We wanted to go over the V-hull versus Catamaran decision-making checklist. It's the fish head edition, and we didn't really want it for like the elites from California or anything. This is just for Florida fish heads, you know. And so, do you have at least 5 or 6 fillet knives? This is your checklist. So where and how you boat. These are the questions. I regularly boat in tight marinas and narrow slips. So what would you choose, the V-hull or the Catamaran? I'll tell you what, I would go definitely with a V-hull for that. because I think it's more maneuverable. You have a bow thruster. Catamarans don't have bow thrusters, and they're big square things. So I'm going with a V-hull on that one. How about this question? I often operate in open offshore and rough water conditions. I'm going with the Catamaran on that one, because those things are made to run through rough water. But also a V-hull's not bad. You're not going to go wrong either way, but I'm going to give it the edge to the Catamaran on that one. The next question is, I spend long days drifting, anchoring, or fishing at rest. Well, I think the Catamaran's a lot wider, more stable platform, also more comfortable, and also I like to be able to go for a walk on my boat, which you can, seriously, I do like to walk around and stuff, you know, and instead of sitting there fishing all day long. So I do like to go take a walk, and a Catamaran is a better boat to go walk around on. And anyway, my next question is, forward visibility during acceleration is very important to me. I think the V-hull, when it starts out, it has to like go up and get up on plane, where the Catamaran just goes, it's on plane. It doesn't plane off, you know? So you got to give that to the Catamaran. So I think it's 3-1 in the first section. We're going to include this. We're going to include this so everybody can go over it. You fish heads, you know, you got to study up and stuff too. Don't jump right into these questions. And my first sentence is, work through each section honestly. No cheating, you fish heads. So anyway, crew, family, and comfort. I frequently boat with family or non-boaters. That's not the best idea, but anyway, V-hull or Catamaran? I think I would give that to the V-hull. I really do. I think it's a more traditional thing. You know, you can slow down and give them a good ride, even if it's rough, going in and out the inlet. You know, where the Catamaran, I think, might be hopping along a little too aggressive. So I'm going to go with a V-hull on that one. The next question is, stability at rest matters more than top-end speed. Wow. Stability at rest. I got to give both to the Catamaran, to be honest with you. They're so much more stable, and they're so much faster. So why was that question even in there? That's a trick question. People move around the boat while underway or fishing. Well, the Catamaran's big, wide, high decks, high sides, and the V-hull is kind of more narrow, and forget it, Catamaran all the way, you know. Anyway, how'd that question get in here? Reduced fatigue over a long day is a priority. Let me see, getting smashed around or a smooth ride in big, comfortable seats. Three across, I might add, made out of fine Corinthian leather. In a factory somewhere located in Fort Pierce. I think we're going to go Catamaran. Now, Catamaran crushed that whole category, the crew, family, and comfort category. All right, the next one's performance priorities. This is our next one. I care about maximum top-end speed. I'll tell you what, you strap enough horses on, you're going top end. And I would take 1,600 horses over 900 every day. And so my particular Catamaran has 1,600 horses, but I have seen V-hulls with 3,000 horses. Seriously, that's HCBs. I gotta say, top end speed, I might get that to the V-hull because it's wider. I'm gonna tell you why. You gotta give it to the V-hull. It's wider, and you can put engines all the way across, which I just saw the other day, the HCB, I think it had 6 Mercury 400s on it. So 6, 4, ding, ding, 2,400. Where the Catamaran doesn't have a transom in the middle, so you can only put two engines and 2 engines. I've never seen them with more than 4 engines. So I got to give that to the V-hull all day. That's a winner. Next question is, I care about average speed in real conditions. V-hull or catamaran, average speed in real conditions. It's tough to make a case for that one for the V-hull. I think, the catamaran's going to get you there with your 4 engines. The next question is, I want minimal bow rise during a hole shot. Well, the catamaran doesn't have any bow rise. And the V-hull rides up until you get over that hump. Got to give that one to the catamaran. So the last question in this section is, I prefer a level running attitude at cruise. Who wrote this? The president of Catamarans of America or something? I prefer a level running attitude at cruise. That's almost a toss-up. I'm going to give that to the V-hull as a gift. And that brings us to ownership and practicality, section 4. So, lower upfront purchase price is critical. I got to go V-hull on that all the way. V-hull's crushing because catamarans don't even start at the low end. The next question is, ease of resale and broad buyer market matter. Whew, boy, that's a toughie. Ease of resale. I mean, there's hardly any resale boats out there. They're not changing hands, which what's that tell you? I know of one catamaran that was sold, and the guy sold it in a week. And V-hulls sell all the time, and they're selling too. That's a toss-up. I'm actually going to go V-hull for ease of resale. I really am. That was a tough one. Dockage and storage costs are a concern. Geez, I got to tell you, when I put a deposit on a catamaran, I started looking around for marinas. I was told by 3 or 4 marinas, we don't let catamarans in here, seriously. In Stewart and in Palm Beach. We don't allow catamarans on the property. So, so it cuts out maybe, seriously, 30–40% of the marinas won't even let you on the property. They just don't want to deal with it. They're set up for V-hulls. The racks are set up for V-hulls. So I got to give the V-hull the win on that one. But in my case, I found somebody willing to take us in. Poor guy with a 40-foot catamaran. But anyway, that's a good question actually. We're going V-hull all the way on that one. Next question is, I plan to keep the boat at least 4 or 5 years. Which is better for value, V-hull or catamaran? There's not a whole lot of information on this. This is a good question. It's really a good question. I think you should just keep the boat personally. After 5 years, don't sell it. Your wife says you got to get rid of that boat. I don't know. We'll just let that. We better stop on that. Change the subject. But I guess there's more of a market, especially for the lower end of the market in the V-hull. Kind of buyers that aren't aware. I think you got to be a sophisticated buyer to buy, and an educated buyer to buy a catamaran. It's not a starter boat, especially because they all got 4 engines. So I think we're going to give that to the V-hull. If you plan on keeping it for 4 or 5 years, maybe give that nod. So our next is fuel range and efficiency. Our first question in this section is, fuel efficiency at cruise matters to me. Who said that ever? But anyway, fuel efficiency at cruise. I gotta go V-hull on that. I really do. I think you're gonna hammer down on a catamaran and get where you're going, nice smooth ride. And V-hull, you could throttle back and smell the flowers, whatever. And so we're going to V-hull on that. We're going to give it. The next question is, I often run loaded with people and gear. I think I'd go V-hull on that one too, because the Catamaran, I don't really know if they're big load carriers. Really, you know, I need one of those Ouija balls. You know, that ask me later. Isn't that called a Ouija ball? Something like that. 8-ball, magic 8-ball. We need one. Make a note. We can't run this channel without a magic 8-ball.
Get one for the table.
Yeah. And then we need an easy button. You know? Okay?
Easy.
Consistent trim with minimal adjustment is important. Wow. I don't know the answer to this one. I would say consistent trim with minimal adjustment. I'd actually give that to the V-hull. I think the trimming. I think actually to get a Catamaran up, you got to trim them, and then when you get them going, then you trim that motors up until they're just ventilating. I've seen videos on that, but we might have to. That's a magic 8-ball question, really. These are hard. I didn't know they were going to be this hard, or else I wouldn't have published them. Here's the last question. Range anxiety and how I plan trips. Well, how I plan trips and range anxiety, I don't get into it. I always have a full tank. I don't leave the dock, you know, or I don't leave South Florida without every square inch of that boat is covered in gas or diesel fuel. You know, you gotta be a real dummy to run low on fuel. But I have made real long runs where we're just coming into Palm Beach and we're on fumes. And I've actually had to take my 57 Ocean off of, you know, 57 runs like this. I had to take it off a plane and run flat so that the fuel would reach the pickups. And man, it's no fun. It's no fun. So I like these, in fact, Sea Hunter, I got to give them the nod for being a geniuses to put a 1,000-gallon fuel tank in a 40-footer. So the more fuel, the better. And I don't plan on having any anxiety. I think you're both fueled up, you plan on making a lot of fuel stops. And you know, one good thing about the Bahamas, they have that nice yellow fuel. You don't have all that unleaded stuff and everything. They got nice original fuel like it was meant to be, like when we were kids, you know. My motto is buy plenty of fuel and make friends. Like where I go mostly to Old Bahama Bay, I'm friends with all the fuel guys. They look forward, you know, I bring them little gifts, you know, bring them a ham or something when you come over. And man, the fuel guys like to see you. And I like seeing them because they got a hose with the fuel in it. So anyway, we're gonna put these questions down below. You guys can ponder them. You fish heads, study up on this stuff. No cheating. Let us know what you come up with down in the comments. And then this is all we got for today, folks. Thank you very much.